You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Let's rewind to the 1940s and meet Leroy and Forrest Raffel. You might not know their names, but you definitely know their creation, Arby's. Now, you might be thinking, two brothers starting a fast food chain, what's new? But here's the twist. One had a degree in finance, the other in hotel and restaurant administration. That's like pairing a quarterback with a coach-perfect synergy for a business venture. Did they jump straight into sandwich sales? Not quite. In the 1950s, they bought their uncle's restaurant equipment business. Imagine being the go-to guys for restaurant stoves and fryers, and even helping design kitchens like kitchen architects before it was trendy. This gave them two critical assets, industry contacts and insider knowledge. If you're helping everyone else build restaurants, you might ask, why not build your own? Exactly. They saw how fast food was taking off, but also how crowded the burger market was. So they took a different route, literally sidestepping McDonald's by focusing on roast beef premium product. It's like everyone's selling compact cars, and you roll up with a luxury sedan. That strategic insight differentiation and industry awareness formed the bedrock of Arby's. But as we'll see, even the best foundations can be rattled by the aftershocks of rapid expansion. July 1964, Boardman, Ohio, small town, big dream. The first Arby's opens its doors, but here's the kicker. Their roast beef sandwiches cost almost 5 times more than a McDonald's hamburger. Why would anyone pay that? Well, Arby's positioned itself as a cut above. Their menu targeted adults and higher income customers, not just kids looking for a cheap bite. In marketing lingo, that's market segmentation and value proposition. Think of it as the Starbucks of fast food before Starbucks existed. Now, some of you might be skeptical. Isn't that risky? For sure. But the Raffel Brothers were betting on quality and uniqueness. They weren't just selling food, they were selling an experience. Imagine walking into a fast food joint with wood-paneled walls and a menu that felt, well, grown up. Their gamble paid off at first. Within 3 years, they hit 100 locations, then 300 by the decade's end, stretching across 37 states. That's what business folks call aggressive scaling. But as you'll see, scaling too fast without a steady foundation is like building a house of cards impressive, but fragile. So how did Arby's explode from a single shop to 300 in just 6 years? The answer, franchising and debt. Let me break this down. Franchising means letting other entrepreneurs use your brand and business model, sort of like renting out your playbook. Debt, well, that's borrowing money you have to pay back with interest. Imagine trying to run a marathon at sprint speed. That's what Arby's did. They took on private investors, franchised aggressively, and racked up loans. Why not slow down, you might wonder? Because in their eyes, the fast food market was a land grab. Whoever planted their flag fastest won. But here's the conflict. Rapid growth demands cash flow. When your outgoings outstrip your income, you start bleeding money. That's called being over-leveraged, a technical term that basically means you owe more than you earn. Soon, cracks began to show. The IPOF big payday they hoped would solve everything never happened. The market soured, investor confidence dipped, and suddenly, Arby's was in over its head. This is a classic business lesson. Scaling is exhilarating, but without a safety net, one stumble can bring the whole structure down, and that stumble was right around the corner. Let's talk about the first crash. When the IPO fizzled, Arby's couldn't pay its debts. Banks pulled support. Franchisees cut off from supplies, stopped paying royalties. It was a domino effect home missed payment leading to another until the whole system stalled. This is known in finance as a liquidity crisis. Think of liquidity as the oil that keeps a car running smoothly. When it dries up, the engine seizes. For Arby's, bankruptcy was the only way out of structured way to hit the reset button and protect what was left. Now, you might be thinking, was this the end? Not even close. The Raffel brothers stayed at the helm, working tirelessly to rebuild. They negotiated with creditors, cut costs, and restored confidence. After 5 tough years, by 1975, Arby's was back with 500 locations and, more importantly, profitability. It's the classic comeback story, falling hard, but getting up stronger. The takeaway? Failure isn't fatal if you face it head on. Sometimes you have to shrink before you can grow again. By the mid-1970s, Arby's was back in the black, but the Raffel Brothers knew they needed more than grit, they needed capital. Enter RC Cola, a soft drink company eager to expand into food. In 1976, Arby's sold for $18 million, a hefty sum back then, and they stayed on to run things. This is what business folks call a vertical integration, move combining companies from different parts of the supply chain. The idea? Synergy. RC could market soda in Arby's. Arby's could benefit from RC's deep pockets. At first, it worked. Expansion picked up. By 1979, Arby's had 800 locations. But here's the conflict. RC Cola didn't understand what made Arby's unique. When the Raffel Brothers retired, RC started tinkering with the formula. They introduced hamburgers, chasing McDonald's instead of embracing what set Arby's apart. It's called brand dilution, watering down your identity by trying to be everything to everyone. The result? Sales slumped. RC's resources couldn't compensate for a lost sense of self. It's a powerful lesson in staying true to your roots, no matter how tempting it is to follow the crowd. In 1984, another twist. RC Cola, and with it Arby's, was bought by Victor Posnera billionaire, known for hostile takeovers and leveraged buyouts. Those are business terms for aggressively buying companies, often with borrowed money, and shaking things up. Posner's intentions were, let's say, questionable. He hired strong management who quickly ditched the failed hamburger experiment. Sales rebounded, and by the late 1980s, Arby's was growing again. But here comes a conflict. Management accused Posner of siphoning profits instead of reinvesting. Franchisees felt neglected. It's like owning a classic car but refusing to change the oil. Eventually, it breaks down. Lawsuits, resignations, firings. It was corporate drama worthy of a miniseries. The technical term here is corporate governance, how a company is directed and controlled. When that breaks down, so does everything else. Posner's legal troubles forced him out in 1993, paving the way for a new era at Arby's. Sometimes a company needs to hit rock bottom before it can rebuild. With Posner gone, Arby's became part of Triarca Holding Company with an eye for food and beverage brands. Triarch's strategy was portfolio optimization, focusing on what worked and shedding what didn't. Think of it as Marie Kondoing a business. They sold off non-food ventures and invested in Arby's growth. The conflict? Fast food was more competitive than ever. Chains like Subway and Taco Bell were innovating, and customers craved novelty. Triarch responded by modernizing Arby's menu and stores. They tested new items, revamped branding, and aimed for consistency, a key term in food service, meaning your curly fries taste the same in Ohio as they do in Oregon. By the late 1990s, Arby's was stable, if not spectacular. Not every era is about explosive growth. Sometimes survival means slow and steady progress. Triarch's disciplined approach laid the groundwork for Arby's next big leap, but the economy and the industry were about to shift again. In 2008, Triarch pulled off a major coup, merging with Wendy's in a $2.34 billion deal. On paper, this was a synergistic merger combining strengths to compete with the giants. But in practice, not quite so smooth. The global financial crisis hit fast food hard, but Arby's suffered more than most. Here's a technical insight. Same-store sales, a measure of how existing locations are performing. For Arby's, those numbers were deep in the red. Why did Wendy's do better, you might ask? Wendy's had a stronger brand and customer loyalty. Arby's, still searching for identity, lagged behind. It's like merging two sports teams, but only one has a game plan. By 2011, Wendy's sold most of Arby's to a private equity firm. The lesson? Not all mergers create magic. Sometimes, size creates more problems than it solves. But Arby's story wasn't over. In fact, their greatest comeback was just around the corner. Enter Inspire Brands, the private equity firm that took control of Arby's in 2011. Their approach? Data-driven menu, innovation, and bold marketing. If you've seen those We Have the Meats commercials, you've seen Inspire at work. Inspire used emotional pricing, launching new items at low prices, testing customer response, then deciding whether to keep or drop them. It's like beta testing a video game, but with sandwiches. The results? 14 straight quarters of same-store sales growth, outperforming the industry. Items like gyros and brisket sandwiches became hits. Marketing stunts like the famous Pharrell hat tweet kept Arby's in the cultural conversation. Their secret sauce was relentless experimentation and a willingness to poke fun at themselves. Remember Jon Stewart's jokes about Arby's? Instead of getting defensive, Arby's joined in, turning criticism into conversation. It's a masterclass in modern brand management. Embrace your quirks, ride the social media waves, and innovate relentlessly. Now, let's tackle the age-old mystery, what does Arby's actually mean? For years, fans assumed it stood for roast beef. After all, Arby sit fits. There was even an ad campaign, America's roast beef, yes sir. But here's the twist. According to the founders and official reps, Arby stands for Raffel Brothers. That's right, the initials Arby come from their last name, not the sandwich. Is this a cosmic coincidence or marketing genius? I mean, what are the odds the initials also match your signature product? It's the kind of branding serendipity most companies dream of. So, next time you bite into a roast beef sandwich, remember, you're not just eating lunch, you're savoring a slice of history and a naming story with more layers than their classic market-fresh sandwich. What do you think? Was it destiny? Or did they plan it all along? Either way, it's one of the best brand origin stories in fast food. Let's bring it home. What can we learn from Arby's roller coaster journey? First, resilience. Arby's endured bankruptcy, bad management, failed mergers, and shifting consumer tastes. Each fall was met with a rise, sometimes slow, sometimes spectacular. Second, reinvention. Whether it was premium positioning, menu innovation, or social media savviness, Arby's kept evolving. That's called adaptive strategy, the ability to pivot as markets and tastes change. And third, know your core. Arby's stumbled most when it lost sight of what made it unique: a roast beef, adult appeal, and playful marketing. The technical term here is brand identity, your distinct fingerprint in a crowded market. So, next time you see an Arby's, think about more than curly fries. Think about a brand that survived giants, gambled on difference, and keeps coming back for more. What about your own experiences? Have you seen Arby's change? Maybe you disliked them years ago, but love them now. That's the power and unpredictability of reinvention in business.